Hey there, fellow citizen of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. Today, I have with me Denise Thistlewaite. I said I wasn't gonna try to pronounce your
Yes.
last name, but here we go. Awesome. Happy Monday to you. And
Happy
where
Monday
you
to you
calling
as
from?
well. I'm coming from Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Las Vegas. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And give us a quick synopsis of what we might be yapping about today.
Yeah. I was a director of investigations for a very large school district for a number of years and had a tremendous amount of stress in my job and went to a Vipassana 10-day silent retreat and had an experience that completely changed my life. And not only did it change my life spiritually and emotionally, but it completely transformed the way I approached the work, how I handled stress in my own life, how I dealt with other people. And now I'm trying to, I'm writing a book and I'm helping people kind of one conversation at a time right now to get out of their headspace and move in a more positive direction to make good decisions in their lives. That's my goal anyway.
Okay, that's quite a hefty goal, but a necessary one. When you said get out of their own heads, the first thing that came to mind was, oddly enough, well, maybe in my the way that I approach it is like to get out of my own head. It feels like I need to go into my head.
Exactly.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Okay,
Yeah. So
okay.
it's all about metacognition. Are you familiar with that term?
You are not speaking my language at all, but I'm all
Okay.
ears.
So metacognition is about so right now we're in our own lives, right? We're in our bubble and we're just living our lives and we're having all these emotions and these feelings and we're acting in the moment. But metacognition is when you kind of separate yourself and almost watch yourself in a situation like you're watching a movie and you're
Mm,
saying, here are these emotions that are being acted out. Here's this situation and how it's grabbing onto me. And you can get emotionally swept away in that really easily. Or you can say, I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to step back for 1 second because our thoughts and our thinking are two different things. So metacognition basically is like you have a thought and you say, I see that picture. That's a thought. When you start thinking about it, that's when you attach some kind of emotional component to it, right? Just like if I pass by you on the street and you say hi to me and I don't answer you. And you're like in your head, why didn't she answer me? She's mad at me. She doesn't like me. Did I say something to offend her or something? Whereas I was totally not even, I was thinking about something else and I didn't even see that you were there. You're creating a scenario of things because your mind is just going ego in all different directions that isn't even true. And it's being able to take a step back and saying, no, I don't know that any of this is factual. So I'm not going to internalize it. So
mm,
it's
mm,
exactly like
mm.
you said, it's like introspection to examine what's happening in your thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about I don't want to say metacognition. I want to be a bit more concrete. Introspection. So one of the things that first comes to mind is that there was a point at which I thought you had to have read all kinds of books, done some mountain climbing and meditating for hours and hours, and learn to shut down all the voices and everything before you can be truly introspective. And it's obvious that is not true. But so from your own experience, like what are some of the some of the misconceptions about what it takes to look inside.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I used to think that and I meditate a lot now and before and I used to beat myself up all the time because I'm like you got to stop thinking, you have to clear your mind, you have to go deeper. And it's not about that. It's about being able to recognize this as a thought and then letting it flow through you, right? And when you talk
Mm-hmm.
about being in your head, here's an example I think that might resonate. So, what's your favorite restaurant?
Ah, let's say PF Chang's.
Okay. So you have a Friday night and you're going to PF Chang's and you're like in a really good mood. You're by yourself. You get a little table. It's awesome there. You're ordering your favorite meal. I'm doing the same thing and I'm at the next booth. And Jessica is at the next booth and we're all separate. And we order our food and I am eating my food and I am so worried about this fight that I had with my husband last night. And I'm like, I can't believe these things were said. I can't believe that I said what I did. And I'm like feeling the emotions like it's happening. My stomach's getting upset. My blood pressure's rising. I'm clenching up. You know, you can feel in your body when something's happening. Yeah. And then you are thinking in your head, I have so much that I have to do. I have all these podcasts that I have to edit. I have so much work that I need to do. I'm trying to find a way to manage my time better, but you're thinking about it and it's creating anxiety in you. And Jessica is like, this is the best meal I have had. I love it here. I love this place. I have a cocktail. She is truly living in that moment and enjoying every moment of it. And the three of us are literally in the exact same place. And we're having completely different experiences.
Yeah, yeah.
And to be able to recognize that and stop yourself and be like before I didn't notice what I was doing. Now I can be like, stop. Like you're in your head and you're not engaging in the present moment. You're not having a wonderful conversation with people around you. You're not enjoying the food that you're eating. Because you're all up here and you're catching yourself in your misery. You're creating your own misery instead of enjoying this moment. So the catching yourself and then noticing your body changes and saying, no, I'm separating myself from that. And maybe there's a problem you have to solve. I'm going to do that later. I'll think it through and make logical decisions instead of getting emotionally entangled. And I'm going to enjoy this moment right now. It's so important. One of the things I did when I got back from the retreat, because I learned a lot about mindfulness and I studied a lot about it. And I had no idea how much time I was spending in the past or the present in my head. And I set an alarm on my phone to go off at like 9:23, 10:15, 11:42. And every time it dinged, I said, stop. Like, what are you thinking about right now? And 90% of the time, it was not what was happening right now. It was always a worry or a regret.
Yeah. That's crazy. But it's very, very rooted in, rooted in reality. And in a sense, you're having to fight against yourself, right? Because there is, I'm only 30. I'm about to be 31 in a few months here. So I don't know much about life yet, but it seems that there's an inevitable part of the human equation that forces us to almost always think about the present. The future and the past, because we typically try to. Oh man, yeah, we have to not forget about the past, and so that we can use the past in order to chart our own path into the future by avoiding some of the trips and falls and the pitfalls of the past. So we can't forget about the past, and then at the same time we can't live so far into the future that we like miss the now. So you're having to fight against what it seems like a part of the human element. So can you touch on that struggle?
Yes, I love that you said that. So it's not about forgetting about the past. So in my mind, this is just my opinion. I think we're faced with challenges that are similar in nature over and over again because we keep making the same decisions. We keep having the same reactions that have the same outcomes. And if you want a different reaction and outcome, you have to handle some things differently. When you talk about not forgetting about the past, it's so important in our lives in order for us to learn and grow and become better humans. But the difference is I can be thinking about the past and think, what did I do that escalated the situation in a negative way? How could I have handled this better? I can think through it in a more logical way that is going to help me grow emotionally and in all of the relationships that I have. But instead, people that don't separate themselves at all, if we let ourselves get embroiled in that emotional entanglement of the fight, your whole body is reacting to being in that moment, the fight or flight situation, when it's all a memory, and you're creating your own misery for what's happening in your head that you don't have to keep refeeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
about the future, like my kids are all, go through college and they like study, study, study. And then they like are super worried about, say, taking an exam or whatever. And I'm like trying to get through to them. Are you prepared? Did you study? Do you know the material? Yes, yes, yes. But I'm being nervous. It's understandably something that comes naturally. But if you can breathe through and separate yourself and be like, I'm ready for this thing that's happening in the future. That's all you can do is prepare yourself so much. But the worry and the projection that all these, it's usually awful things that'll happen, right? That are like less than 0.5% of the time really happen. You're expending all of this energy that you could be using in other more positive ways.
That makes sense. I don't know where I got this phrasing from, but at some point I started saying that there's no shortage of misery in life. So in the things that we do, we have to try to minimize unnecessary suffering, unnecessary misery, and because like you don't have to try hard to run into misery. I mean, it's
It's right there.
it's always around the corner. So whatever you do, just try to minimize the unnecessary ones. Not to say that like misery is necessary for life. It's just that, as far as I know, it's kind of hard, if not impossible, to avoid misery at all. I mean, like completely, and to some extent, maybe you don't really want to completely avoid any sort of misery. But so a quick tangent here. Did you have a favorite like song as a little girl, like a go-to song that just you always loved to listen to when you were young?
It's funny.
We're talking like
I
before
can't
10.
think of a favorite song I love to listen to. I can think of my mom used to sing "You Are My Sunshine" to me all the time, and it used to make me cry. It felt like it was sad.
Oh,
So
oh,
that's my earliest
okay.
memory of something like that. What about you?
Oh, oh, there's quite a few. I For context, I grew up in Mozambique. I was born in Rwanda. I grew up in Mozambique, and like 90% of the songs that I listened to when I was young
Hmm.
were English songs, and I didn't speak English, so
Oh,
I had no idea
interesting.
what they were saying. Um,
So it
and
was the music that moved you, the beat
yeah,
and the
yeah,
rhythm, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome.
And so it was kind of hard to explain. Like once I came stateside, and I was trying to explain to parents here that I'm not listening to the lyrics. I'm just listening to the beat. And like, yeah, we've heard that, other kids using that excuse. But except that in my case, that's how I grew up. Even if I
Yeah,
wanted to pay attention to the lyrics, I couldn't, because the
yeah,
songs were in English. But now that I'm an adult, listening to some of those songs, I'm like, oh my goodness, what was I dancing to? Because even some of the local songs were just very, very graphic, and I had no idea what
Oh,
I was
got it.
what I
So
was
yeah,
dancing
you have
to.
a totally different perspective now, right?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So how did you end up on this path? And what is the path that you're on? Would you say, is this like a sort of enlightenment? Like, how would you describe the path that you're on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was freaking out with the job that I had. I was a hearing officer and I had hearings day after day where the employee and the union steward would be on one side of the table and the manager, director, principal with an attorney would be on the other. And everyone's presenting their side as to why the person got disciplined or why they're getting fired. It
Mm,
was grievance hearing. It was very angry, a lot of hateful energy, toward each other, toward me as the
Yeah.
decision maker. Like it was very threatening in many ways. And I was like, I knew that what the job was when I took it, but I didn't realize the intensity of the negative emotion that would be involved in
Mm-hmm.
it. So I started practicing mindfulness, and I was taking a class at the University of Massachusetts. It's called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. And part of it was a retreat that was required. So you had to find your own. And I found the only donation-based retreat I could find. So it was Vipassana, and it was a 10-day silent retreat in 29 Palms, California. And it's interesting because you have to give up everything when you go. You're handing over your phone, electronics, your car keys. You can have nothing but clothes and bedding. You can't journal. You can't read. And you're meditating for 12 to 14 hours a day. Is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I would talk about being in your head, like
Right.
full blown
Right.
conversations and scenarios that just get out of control because there's no outlet at all. And
Mm-hmm.
during that experience, I had an awakening experience where I don't even know what happened to me when it was happening. I was in a pretty deep meditation that day. I was about 7 days in, and I just completely dissolved into this not myself anymore. It was like this engulfment of love and light and spirit and God, universe, source. I became one with this, and I I have never been the same again, Moses. I cannot tell you what a profound impact it had on my life. I mean, it probably was 2 minutes long, if it was even that.
Mm.
And when I came home, I was like, what the heck happened to me? And I started researching like what happens. I researched energies. I researched because of the way the meditation is set up, it's very different.
Mm.
And I went down this rabbit hole of like happiness and growth and emotional intelligence. And I've just learned so much about how not only have I improved my life greatly because of that experience, I never would have had any of this wherewithal to go on this journey had it not been for the enlightenment thing that happened, the awakening. But now it's
Mm.
all about, for me, I feel like that's my purpose. Like I need to share with people that there is a way out and you can make different choices and hold different energies in your body to have a better and happier life. Like it is possible. And I wouldn't have believed that before. I was very
Mm.
analytical
Mm.
and black and white before,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nothing is black and white.
Mm. Right, right, right. Huh. So when you're talking about being part of these hearings, the thing that came to me, the first thing that came to me was like, how how do you how do you formulate your thoughts in because it's a high intense environment, right? You
Mhm.
have people both sides, each one truly, most likely truly thinks that they are in the right,
Mhm.
and you have to not only listen to the to that, but you have to have a certain level of uh, not discipline. What's the word I'm looking for? Wisdom and
Mhm.
discernment, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
To actually swift through this information
Yes.
and make that analytical decision making. So it is a skill set that necessitates that aptitude, right?
It is.
And you had that aptitude, right? But now that you're on this other side of mindfulness, how do you approach communication when there's like two sides that are at odds with each other?
Yeah. Um, I'm telling you, I am loving this podcast. You are asking the best questions. This is amazing. So yeah, so what would happen before, I have a file with all the documents and everything, and I knew the case. And I would go in with a very black and white attitude of here's the rule that you broke it, this is the consequence. It was a very cut and dry process for me. And people
Mm-hmm.
were very emotional, and the only way for me to survive that in the beginning was to put a shield up, like as their bullets are coming, pating, 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 the anger, the
Yeah.
grief, the sadness, the blame. I couldn't let it get too close to me because it was just a
Right.
lot. I don't think I could have been able to really process it. So I was
Mm-hmm.
very composed. I was very cut and dry, probably cold. A lot of people would have seen me as um, just there to do the job. When I
Mm-hmm.
went on the retreat and I came back, I was pretty emotional for a while. I was trying to grapple with everything that I was feeling. And I went back into the work environment that was like super intense all of a sudden again. And I'm like, ugh, I've just been totally
Mm-hmm.
isolated for 10 days. So that was rough. But I started to see for the first time that this person's perspective of what happened is their truth. And this person's
Right.
perspective of what happened is their truth. And the real truth is somewhere in the middle. But in their minds, they were right. And I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't really thought about it like that before. And I looked at it
Mm-hmm.
from more of a this is a communication issue and it's a perception issue. And let's try to work through some of these things about what you thought was happening, what you thought was happening, and why you reacted that way so that we can come to a resolution and we're not here again. And it was
Mm-hmm.
much more of a counselor approach. And oh my gosh, Moses, people responded to me in a completely different way. Like we had meaningful conversations. The union stewards were like, let's try to work through this. Like, let's make a deal and try to figure out how we can help this person. The administrators were more open to things and not as intense in the hearings. And it was funny because after a little bit of time, people start coming through like a revolving door. And I was a school administrator for years. And the middle and high school kids that are in the dean's office, sadly, have not learned. And they're the adults that are now in the disciplinary hearings. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
personality. They grew up. Now they're still just
Yeah.
dealing
Yeah.
with a different situation, but same situation,
Mm-hmm.
kind of.
Right.
And I would see them and they'd come in for another hearing because something else happened. And there were a few hearing officers. And
Mm.
I'd go in, I'd sit down, and they'd be like, oh, I was hoping you weren't my hearing officer today because I'm trying so hard. and I
Mm.
and I know they did. Like I know they were trying. And I just had this whole different approach of trying to help people work through these things because they were stuck and they did not know that they could make different choices. They didn't see a different way to do things. Like no one had taught
Mm.
them that. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing to me that you always have a choice in how you're going to react to something. You might not have a choice of what's happening to you or the situation that you've been thrown into, but your reaction dictates a lot about you, about your personal growth, about how you handle situations. That's what you're carrying with you into the next situation.
Mm.
I mean, have you ever felt, because I know now in introspect, I look back, have you ever felt like you look at something and you're like, ooh, I handled that really badly. And I just wish
Yeah.
that I could have changed the way that I handled it. Well, now you can forevermore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really good to bring up because it's like, um, the an example that came to mind is two people that go to prison. Let's say for the same or similar reasons. Let's say they got caught because someone told on them, right? And they both spent, let's say, 10 years incarcerated, and one comes out thinking, "Oh man, that was not fun. I don't want to do it again. I'm gonna chart my path in a way that is gonna reduce the probability that I'll come back here." Um, oh no, there's a train coming by.
Oh, it sounds
So
lovely. I love
I'm
it.
gonna I'm gonna reduce the volume here for a second.
Okay.
Um, but or and then the other person comes out and they're like, you know what? That person that told on me, they're gonna know who I am, right? So
Yeah.
so so same similar crime, end up in prison, same amount of time, totally different responses to what happened to them. So yeah, our response plays a major role. I wonder if this train is gonna. I think it's already gone.
Yeah. So
So yeah.
so even thinking about that, think though about those two people and how different, like the second person is holding on to that anger and that resentment and that revenge. Like that's misery. And they're creating more misery in their life by having to feel that anger still, even after all of those years. And to be able to just even learn, and I know it's asking a lot to release it all. You said you were 30, I'm almost 60, and I'm going to be doing this for 40 more years if I live to be 100. I'm going to be catching myself being mad and not in the moment forever. It's not something you can just be like, oh, I'm going to change this thing and now it's different. You're always working to get better and to do better, but the noticing of it and the realizing that I can make a different choice, I think is the biggest lesson in all of this playground that we call life here, because there's just so much we have to deal with. And I mean, even these young people, I look at my kid, I have 3 kids, and the early 30s down to 19, and the social media and all of the technology things, like some wonderful things have come out of all of this, but the things they are dealing with, I never had to deal with when I was 18. Right. And it's just incredibly heavy, just so much coming at you. There's got to be, people have to find a coping mechanism that's going to help them through it.
Absolutely. So let's go back a little bit to the silent, is it silent retreat, would you call it? Or more of a, okay.
It was completely silent.
Okay. That is, that's bringing up so many different touch points. So the things the thing that comes to mind right away is that it's fascinating that in order to get to the state of mind that you ended up at, you needed a silent retreat, given that some, if not the worst punishment that you can give to a human being is
solitary
silence, right? Solitary confinement. So it's like two sides of the same coin. Can you elaborate on the, I guess the phrase that I wrote here is the difference between being lonely and being alone, and the role that played.
That's interesting. Okay, so for me, being lonely and alone, I didn't feel lonely and I didn't feel alone. I felt, how did I feel? I felt confined. And to me, the feeling of like being held tight because you can't express anything was very hard. And especially in the beginning, like some strange, stupid things happen. Like the very first day that they're there and you have to sign your Noble Silence contract and you hand over all of your stuff and you're in a panic mode. The anxiety is a lot when you're like, take everything. And even my car keys, I'm like, I knew I wasn't going to leave, but like, I can't leave. And I go into the first session and we're being silent and we're waiting in line for our first lunch. And the food was amazing. It was all vegan. It was fabulous. And I'm waiting in line and I'm like thinking, this is so strange. You can't look at anyone, like your eye contact. You're going to be sitting across from someone and you're looking this way and I'm looking this way. It's just bizarre. But I'm standing in line and this woman, and I'm not very big. I'm 5'4". She was much taller than me. She comes barreling toward me and she just bumps into me and gets in front of me in line. And I'm like, what just happened? Like, does she have a problem with me? What is did she even aware that she did that? So now not only am I, ego defenses are up. Now I see this, every time I see this woman for the next 2 days, I'm pissed. And I'm like, why that's where I was sitting yesterday. Why does she have to sit there? Yeah. I was so judgy and so like emotionally inequipped to deal with what was happening to me. I finally, thank God, had some knowledge of mindfulness before I went on the retreat, just the surface level, where I was like, Denise, you have to stop because you are going to spend 10 days being miserable, being pissed at everything that's happening around you. And I'm like, that's not why you're here. You're going to miss the whole experience. So I was like, I'm breathing through it. She wasn't aware. She's totally, everyone's in their own head. When we ended that, And there were other things that happened too that I was like, okay, like breathe through it. It's all right.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
ended it, and at the last day, the gong rings and you can speak again. And I'm like, are these people
Mm,
going to talk? Like, I've been with these women for 10 days, and is everyone just still going to be quiet? How weird. Everyone was just like, oh my God, what happened to you? And everyone's talking. And this woman that I totally judged, lovely, lovely woman, like,
mm,
she had
mm,
no idea. And it just made my perspective so different about my own judginess of people, about my own quick, um, just quickness to judge, and like immediate reaction in my own mind because my
mm,
ego
mm.
defense was up. And
Yeah.
I realized so much about how many wonderful things I'm missing out on in life because I'm not open to differences,
Mm,
you know?
yeah. 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 Hmm. So that's like taking that whole your perception literally shapes your reality to a whole different level, or at least you are aware of what that truly means. Because
Yeah.
in my mind, there's often a very big distance between our conceptual understanding of something and the actual implementation of that thing. It's like in 2009, no, cheapers, not 2009. What am I talking about? 2018 or 17, I bought a car that I had never seen it on the road before. Never seen it, and I would have never gone out of my way to buy a car like that. But finishing college and you don't have that much money, I bought that car. All of a sudden, everybody in the road has that damn thing, right? So part of me felt kind of good because, like, well, I guess it ain't that bad of a car. But I'd never seen this vehicle before, and now everybody has it. And so, but it's like obviously the car was always there. It's just it wasn't part of my reality. So it literally, in my reality, it did not exist. It did not exist. And so
Yeah.
being, it's like a tiny example of like how being aware of uh, something, it changes how we view how we view the world. Um, so can you touch a little bit more on we're doing a little gear shifting here, but you
Yeah.
say you're writing a book. You're writing a
Hmm.
book, and I'm at like stage -5 of writing my own book.
Hmm.
So what I'm doing is it's an autobiography, and what I'm doing is I'm going through every single memory that I can possibly remember and writing it down. And for the last, I don't know, 30 years, so there isn't that much that much writing to do. I'm on year 24 now,
Okay. Wow. That's a
and
lot.
it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot, but it's starting to get to the point where it's like, oh, do I really want to write about that? Do I want to write about the color of this spoon that I just randomly remember? But there's all these memories in my head that I didn't even know that were there because I have the memory of a frog, and so like the more that I write, the more that I'm so surprised at how much I actually remember. But anyways, I'm nowhere near actually starting to write the autobiography. I'm at writing my own memories. But for you, what I guess question one, like what stage are you at in your book writing, and question two, like what's the book gonna be about?
Yeah. I'm about 2/3 of the way done. And the way I've set it up, I've changed the format more than once, so that's why it's taking so long. But the way I'm setting it
Mm-hmm.
up is basically a first part is talking about the stress that I was dealing with before I went to the retreat. And then it goes into day 1 through 11 in detail of the retreat. And I was taking bullet
Mm-hmm.
notes just so I would remember because I also have the memory of a frog. And I was afraid I was going to forget. And I felt like I'll never have this opportunity again. I need to remember what each day was. So it's all of
Yep.
that. And then after I came back, I spent the next 8 years trying to figure out what happened to me and reading a ton of transformational self help books about ways to manage stress in your life, just like different techniques. I've read hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
So I've tried so many things and a lot didn't work, and a good handful really made a difference for me. So I'm writing it in the perspective of these are things like I broke down like perception and perspective, like metacognition about your thoughts aren't always true, that kind of stuff. and I'm incorporating some real life examples that I think people can relate to with little scenarios. Now I've decided my husband's going to illustrate some sections for me. He was like, great. Great. What do I get to do? I'm like, I just need you to do this, this, and this. And here I made a list. But so I want to make it a little bit illustrative so it's easier to to internalize. But yeah, so that's how I'm approaching everything. And it's actually going to be called Holy Shit, I Think I'm Enlightened. And then it has a subtitle about the journey and just basically what I've learned with things that people can use to incorporate into their lives that will hopefully be helpful. But it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. It's really challenging.
Oh, so I'm looking at some serious work ahead of me. Holy smokes. Okay, I like that title though. I like the title.
Thanks.
As we're coming to the top of the hour here, it's incredible how fast this time went by. Can you've a few times already you've touched on the importance of understanding that you are not your thoughts, and I wanna drive that home a little bit more because there's this term intrusive thoughts, and I just so happen to be lucky enough to I don't know, I didn't read any books or anything like that about it. It's just at some point as I grew up, I just noticed that, okay, there are certain thoughts that enter my head they coming from somewhere, I don't know where it is, and they just enter my head, and I just knew somehow that, okay, that's kind of weird. Okay, move on. That's not me. That's not my thought. But the more that I started to look into that I started to navigate the different channels, online channels, I found out that there's some people that they weren't that lucky, right? The thoughts that start entering their heads, they genuinely thought that they were thinking that, right? And some of these thoughts can vary in degrees of darkness, right? And being able to understand that, okay, well, that's a really, really dark thought that just entered my head, but I'm not entertaining that thought. It's not me conjuring up that thought purposely. It's a crucial one. So for those that have intrusive thoughts, or they're not aware about intrusive thoughts, or haven't even developed the ability to try to differentiate their own thoughts from just thoughts that come and go, like, where does one even begin to wrestle with this?
Well, I think that's a really complex question. So if you're really having darker thoughts, if someone's having dark thoughts and they're trying to, they don't realize that that's not them. Like you said, they're like, I think that a lot of people really would benefit from therapy to try to dig through all of that, because I think that an occasional thought is just something that pops in your head and then goes away. But if it's more of a constant thing or a perpetual thing, there's something happening. There's something that happened in your past, or something in your ancestry, or your belief system and your heritage, anything, your subconscious that's happened that you are it's trying to process itself out, in my opinion. In order to release that, you have to find a means to be able to release that. There's a whole other thing that happened to me during the retreat. It was a dark night that happened, and it was insane. But I realized after the fact that, and while it was happening, I was like, this isn't real. This isn't real. This is like, I was like, breathe. You are good. You're going to wake up in the morning. It's going to be fine. But what I know was happening was, it was all of this energy that was just becoming unblocked, and it was loosening and rising to the top. And it was bad. It was negative. It was hurtful. It was sad. It was overwhelming. And it all just was coming out. And at the retreat itself, like for me, my thing was spiders. I had a night where I was like, there's spiders all over. There's spiders everywhere. There were no spiders. Some people were physically sick. They were vomiting. And that was part of their release of that. So I think at some level, we all have things that are in our subconscious that are being held onto, that could have been a very, not a really traumatic thing, but the way we've internalized it, it's become more traumatic and that we have to release. And there's a lot of different ways that that can happen. I think therapy is a really good way to do that. But I think people just understanding, if you learn to notice when your body is reacting to something, because say you have a really negative thought and you feel yourself feeling that thought, to be able to go, no, I'm going to, sorry, that's my motorcycle, guys. That you're going to be able to say, stop, and like, I'm going to step away from this emotionally and try to look at it objectively. Like, I'm not embroiled in this. Why would I be thinking that thought? Like, to try to process it better, I guess. I don't know. That's a hard question.
It is. And it's like I said, I was just lucky enough to have had that. I don't know where it came from. I just knew that, okay, that was a weird thought. And I also, like, I guess it's gonna come out more as I try to write this book. But as I was writing down some of these memories, there were memories that were just, I didn't think that they were actual memories until I consulted with other people that happened to have been there, and they're like, how do you remember that?
Yeah.
But some of them were like really, really dark, right? I was like, holy smokes, there's no wonder why, like, from a 5-6-year-old, that you would just, that memory, it makes sense that memory would suppress its full reality from you. But okay, wow. So we're coming to the top of the hour here. It's kind of crazy. I didn't have questions written as we started. That's just how I approach it. And now I have a full page.
We've talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So what's by your own definition of success? What's your next milestone? What's the next big milestone for you?
Oh, mine
in your enlightenment level.
Yeah, I just want to share my message with people, as many people as I can. I'd love to get my book out, go on more podcasts. Love to come back when it's published. I want to do some public speaking. I'd love to travel and just share the information, because it's had such a profound change and impact on my life. And I feel like, I mean, this is so cliche. Everyone says that if I can just help one person, but I really feel like I wish I knew what I know now when I was younger, because I would have just such a happier, more fulfilled life. And I think that's what we all strive for, right? Just to be happy and feel love. And
what's your definition of love?
Oh, wow. You're going super deep here at the very end. Shit.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, well, there's all kinds of love, obviously. The love of your spouse and your kids, and of God and spirituality. But I think that feeling, having self-love and compassion is important before you can share that love in any capacity. So I think the root of love is learning to love self and to find value in all that you are, and to appreciate that you are you in every way, and that's fine, and that's perfect, and it's wonderful, and you don't have to change yourself. And I think once you can grasp that and internalize it and start living that, I think you are living a life that's full of love.
I like that. I kind of put it slightly different. I say, I try to tell people, not that I'm in any position to, tell people, but every once in a while, when the opportunity comes up, I try to remind people to have a bit more grace with themselves. Just to remember that.
Absolutely.
Oh man, a happy
Such
Monday
a fun
to
hour. Thank you.
Yeah. And so as a closing here, what if the audience wants to learn more about you, Denise, where do they find you?
Yeah, thank you. So I have a website, and it's called An Enlightened Life, and I have free meditations on there that can come to your inbox semi-monthly if you want to sign up. And then I'm on social media. I'm on TikTok and Instagram under An Enlightened Life, also under my name, Denise Thistlewaite. I'm pretty easy to find. Oh, I have a YouTube channel that
Okay.
I just started, so I'm diving into YouTube ocean, which is scary.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Awesome. Awesome. It's been an honor having you here. When your book goes live, I would like to have you back for a part two.
I would love to. Thank you so much. It's been great. Such a pleasure to meet you.
Awesome. Pleasure to meet you. Happy Monday.
Thanks, you too.